So I started off in sales, as I said, during university, working on the shop floor at Paul Smith. I think sales can be a very good start to a variety of different careers. It can provide you with some great skills which are relevant to many roles. It's also a good foot in the door with a brand or a company, which can lead to other opportunities. So, for example, as I said, I started at Paul Smith on the shop floor. Most of the senior marketing team now, including the marketing director, started at the same place as me on the shop floor. So there's also Darren Taylor-Smith, who's, this is dangerous, is head of recruitment at H&M. So if you think that actually that could be a good start for you, he's here and you can talk to him later. Also, if you work in retail at somewhere like H&M, you'll work with different roles in fashion, such as visual merchandisers, who create the amazing window displays that you can see in the store. They also determine how the store is laid out, so that it's arranged and it's a good experience for customers. They work alongside merchandisers who make sure that the right product is in the correct quantity in each store. Rosie Butler is the visual merchandising manager. Kind of should make you stand up there. Anne Rathman is the merchandiser. So feel free to grab them if you want to talk one-to-one about kind of more about what their roles involve. So my next job in fashion was working for a fashion PR agency, which is basically a company which is used by different labels to get their product or their news stories into the press. So for example, when you see a dress in a photo shoot and it's credited to a brand or a celebrity wearing a fantastic dress on the red carpet, or an article written about a new label, often a PR will have had a hand in making all of those things happen. Some of the skills that you need in order to be a good PR involve very good communication skills. You have to pitch ideas all of the time to the press, so that's incredibly important. It also tends to be quite good to be quite outgoing. You have to entertain the press, take them for teas, lunches, etc. It's all about building relationships with them. You also have to multitask and be really organised. In an agency, you have multiple clients and demands upon your time. So I spent about 7 years working in 2 top agencies. I worked with brands from Nike to Karl Lagerfeld, and dressed celebrities for events, organised press trips, such as going to Beijing with Nike before the Olympics, and doing seating plans for shows, which took me to Milan, Paris, obviously in London as well. So it's quite varied, and as I say, can be a very interesting part of fashion to work in. So now I'm at ELLE, and what does my role involve? I kind of describe myself as being kind of a gatekeeper. PRs come to me and I work out what is or isn't right for the magazine, whether it's a story, a product, or a brand. I also work closely with ELLE's advertising team, who sell advertising space. And my sales team let me know who is investing, so that I ensure that those brands feature in the magazine when their product or their stories are right. It's probably useful in order to understand kind of what I do in the other roles editorially on the magazine, is to understand how the fashion parts of the magazine are put together. We call the front of the magazine front of book, which is basically the shopping pages where you can see all the product cut out images. It's designed specifically so that you can clearly identify what items you want to buy. Bonnie is here, who is our market and merchandising editor, and she's responsible for some of those pages as well as the fashion assistants. They call in product and PRs pitch product to them, and then they decide what goes into the magazine. They edit, their editors. Then main fashion is the back of the magazine, which is always clothes styled on a professional model by the senior fashion editor or fashion director, and the fashion assistants, which is kind of the entry level into the magazine, as it were, on that side of things, on the styling side, assist them in calling in pieces from different brands to make sure there's a selection of the right clothes for any fashion shoots that they're doing. And then in my role, I tend to steer those people for both sections of the magazines as to kind of which brands need to be covered in terms of investment, or the best example of the key trends, etc. So how we decide when to feature product is then according to trends that we identify at the beginning of the season based on catwalk shows and presentations that we see. So right now, pretty much as autumn-winter goes into store, we're actually already on to the next season. So last month, all the spring-summer collections were shown on the catwalks, first in New York, followed by London, Milan and Paris. The fashion team will see all of those shows, and by the end we'll have an idea of what the key trends are. The first issue of the new season gives that overview, which is the February issue, which we're working on right now. And then for autumn-winter, the first issue is August, so it's kind of 6-month cycles. And the next 5 issues of the season reflect those key trends and themes throughout the magazine. So I tend to attend a lot of press days and VCs and showroom appointments from designers to the high street throughout the season. I tend to go to a lot with Bonnie, as mentioned, who her role as market editor, she's not in marketing, she's literally the market editor. It's kind of her job to know what's out there in the marketplace. So we go out and about to a lot of things together, and we make sure we know who's doing the best pieces and who has the most interesting stories. So that basically what's in the magazine is all the very best stuff. So, what are ELLE's key trends for autumn-winter? Well, we roughly categorise them, and it is kind of roughly categorised. There are more, but these are kind of the main ones, into 6. And we describe them as fetish, future, eccentric ladyland, androgyny, optic shock, and Navajo. So I'll explain what that means. Some trends I've mentioned are picked up more editorially than commercially. So, for example, for future and fetish was kind of sexy, kind of dominatrix boots, a bit of stockings, latex, leather, and kind of corsets, that type of thing. Won't necessarily see so much of that on the high street, but we did see it on the catwalks. Future, we kind of described as kind of space age, slightly sci-fi inspired, so I think kind of metallics and plastics. Again, kind of more editorial trends, but the more commercial trends you will see picked up in the high street, and we've got some great pieces here. So we've got 3 of them kind of on the mannequins and a few extra pieces. So kind of eccentric ladyland was described as kind of opulent elegance. So kind of breaking the rules really, mixing fabrics, textures, prints and colours. So think kind of fake fur, blouses, a lot of accessories and gloves. It's kind of this type of look. So kind of, you know, strong prints, colour, fake fur. It's certainly not for the shy and retiring. And this is kind of a little bit kind of laid out with a little bit kind of fake fur, etc. Oh, you have been. Well, wonderful assistant. So, and androgyny, it would describe as it's obviously kind of more masculine clothes. So it's kind of a looser and leaner silhouette. Think kind of suiting, styled up with kind of a classic white shirt, brogues, that type of thing. So obviously, that's kind of the type of look that I'm kind of referring to. But we also had kind of optic shock, which described as a lot of colour and texture. So kind of bold, loud colours to kind of muted jewel tones. There's a lot of kind of polka dot, kind of some ditty patterns and stuff, but less of, but kind of obviously like a lot of colour into the wardrobe, which I think is really cool. And then also Navajo, which kind of designers kind of rediscovering their heritage, so kind of slightly like Native American inspired. Think ponchos, fringing, embroidery. That's kind of more the kind of fringing side of things, but great for winter. And kind of you just more the merrier in terms of styling it up. And I think kind of if you were looking for one investment piece, you literally just, that's all you can afford, one key thing, then I'd say always go for a great coat. You know, whether it's the kind of shaggy fake fur, the more masculine inspired coat, or my must-have, which is kind of the posh parka, which I think you could totally put over like a glamorous evening dress or like the jeans on the weekend. It's definitely a really good piece to invest in. So I hope that's given you a little bit of a taste of the autumn-winter trends and hope a little bit of a useful insight into the industry. I'm here until 8 o'clock, my colleague's here until 8:30, so if you have any questions then please do ask away. I did learn from kind of doing this last time that probably the most frequently asked question was, you know, how do I get into fashion? So it's why I've kind of talked a little bit about different areas, which because I think the first step is to work out which area of fashion you want to work in and why. As I said, there are, you know, it's a huge industry. There are so many different parts to it. So it's kind of a case of working out what your best skills are and what you find most interesting, really. I think on the editorial side, whether you start as a fashion assistant or an editorial assistant, you may have to work for free to begin with. So it's worth working out your budget so you have a clear sense of what you want to get out of it and how long, say, you can work for free. and just having a kind of clear goal at the end of it. But definitely on the more kind of creative side of things, you may have to do internships or work experience. But equally, there are other areas of the fashion industry where that might not be necessary. So, for example, if you work on the sales side, so I work with the advertising team, they sell advertising space. It's a very kind of sales-oriented job, but they work in a creative environment. They interact with the fashion editors, etc., all of the time. So that can be, a very kind of, a more potentially quite profitable kind of area of the business, but somewhere where you probably wouldn't have to work for you to begin with, you could get straight stuck in. Equally, then there's kind of like the PR and the marketing side of things. That's the wealth of my experience is in that kind of area, more the kind of PR and marketing, which can be really, really interesting and certainly take you all over the world. Work with, designers, working on catwalk shows, but also on the high street can be incredibly exciting as well. So there's different areas, and I certainly have worked in kind of vast variety of them now, and obviously I'm excited to be ELLE at the moment. I would say the one person I haven't mentioned is Natalie Evans-Harding, and she's definitely a great person to speak to if you can. She started on a paid internship at ELLE as a features assistant, and then from there when an opening came up as the editor's PA, and also editorial assistant, kind of like a dual role. She took that and she started by doing kind of small pieces and research and a bit of writing, but over time she's interviewed now everyone from Florence Welch to Marianne Faithfull, and it's got a pretty impressive book, I imagine, of material that she's kind of pulled together. So as her career demonstrates, and I think mine does certainly, you can definitely start in one area of the industry and still move into another. So I think it's a case of kind of building up transferable skills, but definitely go in thinking, okay, this is what I want. And then there's, whether you start in one area but build up to something else, or if I want to be a stylist, then it's worth kind of thinking, what's my dream magazine, and be prepared to start maybe on a local or regional title and then work your way up. I think when we receive CVs, whether it's myself or fashion director, etc., we look for people who, really want it. There's, really a desire for it, and then a demonstration of that. So maybe they've done an internship somewhere else, or they have a blog which they're kind of writing about stuff all the time. It's just to see the enthusiasm, but also the commitment to it as well. I think that's really, really important. But there are loads of different areas, and I think many of them are very interesting, so nothing wrong with trying lots of them, as I have done. So I hope this has been helpful, and around if you want to ask me any questions. As I say, it's a vast industry with a lot of different opportunities. So thank you for listening.